Hello and welcome to another episode of Double J's List. If you get a chance, please like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that, especially the subscription. Today I'm going to be reviewing my new 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV Premier trim. So this is just about top of the line Bolt EUV. The only factory option that it's missing is Super Cruise. So it's the Premier with sun and sound package, so it's got a panoramic sunroof and a Bose sound system. This replaced my 2020 Bolt. I've done other videos talking about how General Motors did a VIN swap, so I'm making the same payment I was making on my 2020 LT after I made up the difference between MSRP. If you want to learn more about that, go check out that video. But this one is the new Bolt, and a lot of really good stuff has happened in this redesign and expansion of the Chevy Bolt lineup. So this is the EUV, which is slightly bigger than the Bolt EV, which I had previously. So what they did was, it's essentially the same platform, and what they've lengthened was the wheelbase slightly. You can always tell an EUV versus an EV because right here, this is more traditional window down to window around the mirror. The EV, the smaller model, right in this area has a small window. So that's one of the quickest ways you can tell the difference between a Bolt EUV and a Bolt EV. What they did is they lengthened the wheelbase to make more room essentially in the back seat. So my old Bolt EV, with the seat adjusted, the front seat adjusted to where I sit, I'm 5'9", so I'm not super tall, but the space between my daughter's car seat and here was probably half. They said they added about 6 inches of leg room, and that works out to be, yeah, about 6 inches. So that's a good argument. So one thing they did not add space to was the hatch. The hatch is about the same size. The floor is higher because they've added, I apologize for all the stuff that's coming off my tree right now in my yard, but they've added this compartment down here that's actually quite big. So I went grocery shopping. I fit a bag of cat litter and a large bag of cat food in there. Closed it up, and I still had room to put groceries and things like that right here. So you can't be adverse to stacking. This is a fairly sturdy shelf. I don't know what it's rated for, but flexes a little bit, but it doesn't feel like it's going to cave in or anything like that. While I'm here, I haven't even played with it yet, but this is the new Bolt charger. As you can see, it comes with both a plug for a 110, like a regular household outlet, still has this protector on it, and it has a plug, the 4-prong plug for doing a 220, and they both have the same kind of adapter, and it goes into this box, as you can see right there, and it can decide whether it wants to charge at 220 or at 110. But let's talk about one of the other changes. So, actually, I'm talking about a bunch of changes here. So, it was on TV, in interviews, the CEO of General Motors, a woman by the name of Mary Barra, she told audiences that she drives a Chevy Bolt EUV. Which is interesting because, you know, you're the CEO of one of the biggest automakers in the world. You've got much more, luxurious, nicer cars in your lineup. Yet you choose to drive the Bolt. I think partially is because of the recall, and she's trying to prove that, hey, we fixed the batteries and they're perfectly safe. It's safe enough for me to drive. Also, I think that she's a strong believer of the electric car movement. And what is interesting about this redesign, so this is more of a facelift, and then they added this model to it, which is still the same platform. But they addressed all of the issues that were really common in the first generation of the Bolt. A lot of people, in online forums and you know, and social media had a lot of different complaints about the car, the first model, and I feel that General Motors made a really good effort to address just about every complaint. The number one complaint that I saw was interior quality. So this one, they've done a lot of things to address that. This screen here is very familiar, just like the old Bolt. It looks like maybe the resolution's up a tiny bit. It looks a little bit clearer, but all the fonts and you know, it's just the layout. That's very familiar, very much the same. Infotainment-wise, I believe General Motors put in a newer generation of infotainment, because this is completely different than the old one. This is the home screen. You can swipe. It's pretty responsive. This has you know, CarPlay just like the old one. Neat little trick if you're unfamiliar, even on the old Bolt. If you press and hold the home button's here now instead of around the volume knob like it was on the old one. If you press and hold this home button just for a moment, it toggles back over to Apple CarPlay, and you press again and you can go back to the main screen. Really nice little trick, so you don't have to go through menus and hit Apple CarPlay and then, oh, how do I go back? You hit home. You know, it's just one way to do it if you're buried in the menus and things like that. The audio settings, like this interface is completely different. I haven't been able to find how many presets that you can put in. You can kind of scroll through all your different presets. One of the problems I had personally with the previous Bolt is it limited how many presets. They call them favorites. This one, it seems to keep adding pages as you add them. So I've got all these FM channels, and then see it says hold to set. Those are ones I haven't programmed yet. So in order to toggle through them, you can do it very easily using the steering wheel. One change they had, in this section of the steering wheel right here, it was a way to toggle your favorites. That switch is gone, and it is now put on the back of the steering wheel right here. So these two switches right here are what toggle your favorites on the left side of the steering wheel, and then just above that is the regen switch, or paddle, I guess you could call it. One thing that they did address was that they increased the quality and feel of all of these buttons. So like this paddle in the old one for regen felt really cheap, like just like an inexpensive button. Now it feels like a little bit higher quality, almost like there's like a fluid dampen to it. The turn signals feel slightly better. They still feel a little bit on the cheap side, but better. You know, a little less, you know, stereotypical General Motors. They also addressed a lot of the interior quality issues. Now it has this, I don't know if this is real or fake leather. It's kind of like a plastic, it looks like leather. It's not much nicer looking than the recycled plastic material that they used, which I know they were trying to make an effort to say, hey, this car is very green, we're using you know, recycled materials, but they were really cheap feeling. Now, like, instead of being like cheap plastic here, this is like an actual padded piece of plastic, which feels better. You know, they've added, like, you can see the green stitching is really kind of cool looking. They've just addressed a lot of these issues. One of the ways they made this look a little more upscale, that it wasn't exactly the best move, is they used this piano black material. And the touchscreen's shiny now, which shows fingerprints and dust terribly. I've got, they have these little, this little compartment right here. I've got a microfiber cloth that I just use this to wipe this off, you know, when the car's off, so I'm not touching the buttons. Something else that they've added is this wireless charging pad. Makes life a lot easier. This is now floating. So before this kind of came down to a pod, you had like a joystick kind of shifter. They've changed the shifter now to these pull levers, which are actually not too bad to operate. The ones that make you drive in a direction, you pull up on. So that's reverse. That's drive. The ones that make you stop, you press like a regular old button, like neutral and park. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you understand that, it's not that big of a deal. They've also changed the way you put it in one pedal driving mode. Instead of just pulling the old one, you'd have to pull into drive and then pull the lever back again, and then would change it to L, which was for one pedal driving. Now you press this button and that activates one pedal driving. You see it turns green when it's on. It activates one pedal driving in reverse too. The other car did not do that, so that took a little getting used to. I'm a big fan of one pedal driving. I like maxing my regen, and I just not having to hit the brake pedal. Like, I can drive all the way to work if you're driving conservatively and keeping a lot of space between the car in front of you, and not trying to run red lights or anything like that. You can basically not touch a brake pedal on most drives, which is pretty cool. The only time you really use it is like an emergency stopping situation. So moving on from that, they've added this floating bridge, I guess you can call it. So you got this really nice storage area here. One of the complaints about the previous one was the quality of the seats. The seats were really uncomfortable in the old ones, and when you'd sit in them, they would creak and make noises because they were just inexpensively built, I guess. It was almost like sitting in like a 1995 Chevy Cavalier. These seats are way better. They aren't the sportiest seats. As you can see, they're very flat. They're not supportive for like cornering or anything like that. But that's not what this car is for. So, take it as you will. But they are much more comfortable, much more supportive. The driver's seat's power on this one because this is the Premier. One thing that the old Bolt didn't have, and I'm not sure if the EV has it yet, but the EUV seems to have, are adjustable height seat belts. I couldn't believe the old Bolt didn't have adjustable height seat belts. It seems like every car's had that for the past 20 years, except for the Chevy Bolt apparently. But this one has it, and it's nice because I'm not exactly tall. I usually keep it a little bit lower, and I keep mine at the middle setting here. Being 5'9", that works out. This one being a Premier, it also has the video camera mirror. This is some sort of like voodoo magic where you can flip it down and then it goes back into mirror mode and you can see through the back window. And the whole reason they do this is because headrests and the D pillar in the back all get in the way of seeing things outside. But when you use this, it goes to the camera that's at the top of the rear windshield, and it shows you a really good view of everything behind you. So, pretty cool stuff. Other than that, this car's got a lot more options. They've added the black bow ties to everything. That was an option on the old ones. I think it was almost $600 on my old car. This one has it. And then, this one has heated rear seats, so you can see the extra space coming from behind here. But I think that it's pretty safe to say that they've addressed all of the issues that people commonly complained about, and like I think that it was part because the CEO drives one of these. They had to make sure that she was happy with the car. But anyway, I think it's time to get behind the wheel and let's take it for a drive, and I'll give you my reactions that way too. All right, behind the wheel of the 2022 Bolt EUV. This is where there's some significant changes as far as how the car drives. Now, the EUV is a lot bigger and it's heavier, and I feel like they've retuned the suspension significantly. The old Bolt had kind of a harsh ride, whereas this one has a much softer, more compliant ride. The side effect of that is that it's not as kind of quick to turn in, and I guess you could say it's not as much fun to drive like on a back road. However, I'll take that because that's really not this car's job. This car is to be comfortable to drive back and forth to work, and it is much more comfortable. On the other hand, another thing that they changed, and this is the same battery, motor, horsepower rating as the previous 2020 Bolt that I had, and in normal mode it feels kind of sluggish, and I thought initially it was because of the extra weight of the car being a lot bigger. When you floor it, it actually does go pretty good. Like I'll hit it right here, and it still quick, like more than most normal cars, so it's still quick. But I came to the conclusion that when you press the sport button down here in the center console, all of a sudden it's very lively, and I believe that's because they changed the programming in normal mode to be very, very subdued, whether it's to maximize the most life out of the battery, or if that's to match like the softer, more comfortable suspension, just because it's more a laid-back experience. Probably a combination of both. Because I was almost disappointed with how sluggish the car felt until I put it into its sport mode, and all of a sudden it is the programming of how much power it gives it, partial, I don't want to use the word throttle because there's no throttle, but partial accelerator pedal input. Anyway, yes, that's changed quite a bit. I think the car might be a little bit quieter. I didn't actually gauge that. I don't know if they addressed a few of the things on the outside that create more wind noise. Maybe there's a little bit less road noise, maybe there's a little more sound insulation. Side by side, that's really tough to tell, because these are newer tires with less miles on them. Right now I've got 584 miles on the car. I've been driving it for 2 weeks. Trying to drive it as much as I can with gas prices the way they are. My poor pickup truck does not get used very much anymore. Just because it just doesn't make any financial sense when you can do this now and save a whole bunch of money. One thing that I have noticed is that the battery, I think it's rated at 240 miles by the EPA. When I get in the morning, it tells me I've got 250 miles to go. So that's pretty good. It's telling me more, and I suspect that they may have put a little more battery material into this new battery. Whether it is as just like a safety to where it charges up not quite as much as full capacity, just so it doesn't put itself in danger, or I don't know. But this seems to have a ton of battery that when you start off, more than they claimed that it had, which is great. Who can complain about that? But other than that, it's still a Chevy Bolt. It's still very familiar. The regen braking is still there. All the good stuff that we're used to. That if you like your Bolt, you're gonna love this one, I think. I haven't gotten to autocross this yet. One thing to keep in mind is that the wheel and tire sizes appear to be the same. So my wheels and tires that I used for autocross on the 2020 Bolt should fit right on this without a problem. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'll autocross this one too. We'll see how it goes. It's just a matter of finding time to do that with life just being crazy, with 2 young children and work life, and trying to make videos for everybody. It takes up a lot of time. So anyway, when you get a chance, hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. I'd like to hear your comments. Anyone else that's done an exchange or bought a new Bolt or is able to compare, let me know what you think. Tell me if you think that my assessment is, if it's good, if it's bad. What are your experiences? Let's share that information. Thank you for watching, and thank you.